Hello, well in this film I'm going to show you how I make a rounder plane, like one of these, but just using hand tools. Now these are really useful for doing things like chair spindles and chair legs and doing round joints. I have already put a film up showing how I make a rounder plane using an engineer's metalworker's lathe, where you can get a very precise conical hole. But of course not everyone has a lathe, and why not have a go at doing one with hand tools? So that's what we're doing today. And if you do want the plans for this, they're on my Etsy shop and I'll put a link down below. Let's get going. Well, starting point for this is a nice block of hardwood, so anything like oak, beech, ash will do jolly well for this. And I've got an old bit, I think it's an old bit of desk leg actually, old bit of table, and I'm just going to cut a section off of this and then I'll mark it up. I'm just going to cut this block off now. You could obviously use a bandsaw or a circular saw, whatever. I'm using one of my Japanese saws. We are. So these Japanese hand saws give a very nice cut. I want to get the centre of the block. You need to be fairly accurate with the marking out. Get it as good as you can. This bit of offcut here is not the best in a way. From the point of view, the corners have all been beveled off. But I'll work with what I've got. It's a perfectly nice piece of wood. It's a nice piece of beech. So what I'm doing, I'm just marking a centre hole at the moment in the piece of wood. It doesn't actually have to be in the centre, it's just that the centre of the hole must match up with the centre you're going to draw on the other side. So in this case it's actually slightly higher up the piece of wood. It's quite a good idea with all of this to work off one edge, the same edge all the time, so you don't get the slight sort of variation if your edge isn't cut quite straight. I'm now just drawing in my entry hole. I'll just check I've got that right. It's an inch diameter entry hole I'm doing on this one. Yep, that's fine. So that's my entry hole, and the next one I want to do is my exit hole, which is going to be a 5/8 of an inch diameter exit hole. 5/8 is quite a useful size for doing chair spindles. So that will be my exit hole. I'm using quite a nice compass here. It's one of these which has a screw adjuster on it. Again, I will just check that. Yep, that's again fine. So what I'm now going to do is draw a tangent to the circle in each case and an angle position for the blade. So I will do that next. So first of all, a tangent to the circle going straight across. So that's the tangent to the circle on my entry hole. I'll now do the same thing on the exit hole. I'm now going to draw in the blade bed angle. To line up with the tangent on the circle. Hopefully you can just see that on camera. That's my blade bed angle there. I will just ink in the circle by hand to show so you can see it a bit better on camera. Okay, there we have it, the circle, tangent to the circle, and then the blade bed, which is an angle to the tangent to that circle. And I'll just repeat the same thing on the other side. So that's the exit hole, and that's the blade bed angle drawn in. Now what one needs to also do is take account of the thickness of the blade. So what I need to do now is draw a parallel line to the blade bed angle, which will become the cut line, because I need to take account of the thickness of this blade that I'm using. So I'll be drawing in a line parallel but just below that line. And the easiest way to get this right is to line it up with the actual blade that I'll be using. That line with the arrow pointing at it will be my actual cut line when I come to cut this block out. Same on the other side. So what I'm going to do next is drill out the hole. Now this one, it's an inch entry hole and a 5/8 exit hole. So what I'll do is I will start drilling out the largest hole first, the entry hole, and I will go down with my drill bit, stepping down in size as I drill down. The last bit I use will have a 5/8, which is the exit hole size. And drill bit wise, you can use any drill bit, but you'll get a lovely finish if you use a Forstner bit. So that's what I'm using. I use them in chair making quite a lot. They're nice. These, they leave a very flat bottomed hole, which is often quite useful with chair making, and they cut really by sort of gripping around the sides. So there you are. I'll use Forstner bits and get drilling. Now I've just drawn a diagram of the sort of cross section of the cylindrical hole. So that's the entry hole, inch diameter. That's the exit hole, 5/8 of an inch diameter. And the blade will sit in the tool between the entry and the exit holes to actually do the cutting. And it's a cylindrical, sort of conical hole going down there. So this is cross section. So very crudely speaking, drill the first 1/2 inch at an inch diameter, then use a 7/8 drill bit to go in for another sort of 3/4 of an inch, then use a 3/4 inch 6/8 to go in for another 1/2 inch, and then you're pretty close to your exit. You finish off with a 5/8 for the exit, and then we'll shave off the steps left by the drills. So that's the idea. So here I have the drill bits already and the blade, so you can see the sort of step down in sizes. 5/8 the exit hole, then that's a 3/4 inch, a 7/8 and an inch. So start with the inch, always start with the biggest one, and this will be the same sort of procedure regardless of what sort of size of rounder you're making. So if it's a far wider bore rounder, you can still just use these drills in a step fashion to actually get your tapered hole. And it's not a bad idea to get one of these Forstner bit sets. They're not very expensive, they're sort of imported tools, but they're perfectly adequate on quality, and they do give you all the sizes you might want. So first up is the entry hole. And that's just 1/2 inch deep at an inch diameter. Next up is a 7/8. Now if you have a set of calipers, you can actually just check the depth as you go along if you do a little sketch like this one I've done. So I'm using a 7/8 drill bit at the moment, so that's my stop line, which is 1.2 inches. So I know as long as I don't exceed 1.2 inches with my hole, I'm fine. I can go a little bit deeper actually on this one, so I'm not at 1.2 inches yet. Yep, that's about right. That's where I want to be. You could be quite scientific about this actually and set your depth stop on your drill. But anyway, why be scientific when you're a bodger? Let's not worry about that. What you end up with, I think it's just catching the light, is a series of holes of sort of decreasing diameter, going from the inch down to the 5/8. They're sort of stepped. So the next job is to basically file off or rasp off those steps all round, so you get a nice smooth conical hole going down. So I'm going to start rasping out the hole to try and get it a bit smoother as you go down. So I'm just going to use a rasp, and this is a second cut rasp. I'll see how it goes. I may change to a bastard cut. So what I'm doing is I'm rasping off the ridges. Can you just see that with the torch? The ridges are getting a bit smaller. I'll keep going. I've been rasping down the hole and it's nearly smooth, not quite. I've got a little bit more to do. But can you see how with a bit of rasping you get rid of those ridges and you get a nice conical hole? So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to cut the blade bed and also cut out the mouth. So fairly careful bit of sawing, as this is a compound angle. Try and get as accurate as I can. It's not helped by having beveled corners on my block, but never mind. Yep. Right, I'm through. Boom. So what I've done, I've sawn the blade bed line just below the tangent where it was marked. I'm quite happy with that. It's quite a nice bit of sawing actually. So what I'll do next, I'll just saw the mouth. So I'm doing a cut line down there, and I'll probably make that a little bit wider than I've drawn it. Oops. Whee. Right. So what we have is one blade bed. So the blade will sit on that bed. Now if I've done this right, it will cut the wood going through. I think actually looking at it, I'm going to need to make my mouth a little bit wider. That's okay, that is easily done. I'm just doing a tiny bit of adjustment here to the blade bed, just taking a tiny shimmer or two off. I need to take a tiny bit more off the bed to lower the blade, because what I want is to point the blade, and it is very nearly there, just to be into that circle. So I want it so the blade actually cuts, enters the circle and cuts, like that. So it's just a tiniest bit more to be chiselled off the bed, get the point of that blade down. I'm just doing a bit of work on the handles for the rounder plane. I've got an old bit of wood here, so I'm just going to smarten it up a bit. Jumping out the vise. Ooh. Just get a bit of rounding on the end of these. I've not got the lathe set up at the moment. That just takes the worst of the end off. Obviously you could do this on a lathe if you had a lathe set up, or you just do it with an axe or a knife. It doesn't have to be accurate, it's only a handle. And then I'm using one of my old cutters just to make the sort of shouldered tenon joint. So this is in a brace and bit. That's one socket. Let's make up the other one. I find with these, I mean, I've used a very sharp chisel, so I sharpened up a chisel and re-flattened the bed slightly, and it's just a tiny little bit of angle, but you want to see that the blade edge is actually in contact with the wood. And I think I've got it close now. This is on hard dry wood, and it's doing quite a good job. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that actually. I'll carry on. On green wood I think this would whiz through. Clearly like a dowel type effect. So it's a bit like a giant pencil sharpener. But it's a nice smooth cut. So that's definitely doing what it needs to do. What you want is very slight rounding on your front leading edge and your trailing edge. And it's just a little, it's not very much. So the blade section is straight like a chisel in the middle, but rounded slightly at each end, and like that you'll get a nice sort of smoother cut. Yeah, that's about how you want it. Forming a nice shaving. I think in green wood, rather than this old bit of broom handle, that will probably do the job. So we will try it out on some green wood next. I'm just going to split out some green wood from this old log. I'll just give that a shave up to rough roundness and then try it in the rounder plane. Well, that's forming a nice dowel there. I need to do a little bit of adjustment on this blade, but it is definitely nearly there. I've done a bit more tweaking to the blade position and actually ground a bit more off the bevel on the blade to make sure that the blade angle is well below the bed angle. But it is giving the sort of shaving that I was after, so it's sort of curly at both sides, shows the centre of the blade is doing the cutting. Quite a nice tight peg hole now. got that about right now. See, what you're trying to get is a nice long shaving with curly bits each end, show the centre of the blade is doing the cutting. So there you are, proof that a rounder plane can be made with hand tools. You don't need an engineer's lathe or anything fancy. And also worth bearing in mind actually, that if I was doing this normally, as you've probably seen me on the Sussex chair film or the Glasgow chair film, I would start off with like an inch diameter rounder plane, get my rough drawer knife material down slightly smoother, and then go in with this sort of size. It's quite a test when you go in straight away with drawer knife into rounder plane material. But it is working, it shows it works, and perhaps you want to give it a go. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and if you want to have a look at my plans and a few hints and tips and measurements in those, then they're available in my Etsy shop for instant download. Okay, bye bye.